Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Feathery Treasury Show. My name is Aaron, and as always, I'm joined today by Alex. How's your day going today,
It's
Alex?
going well, thanks. Very relaxed. Nice to be home. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. Same here. Sundays, I feel like are a really good day for relaxing, get charged for the week ahead. So, a little show note here. Some listeners might have noticed last week, or last episode, I should say, sounded a bit disjointed in some spots, the conversation. We had some technical difficulties. I had to do a little bit of heavy editing. We're still pretty new at this, so we're going to have some hiccups. So, thank you for your patience. I think we sorted out the issue, though, so this episode should sound much better.
Fingers crossed for that.
Yes, finger is crossed. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and get into it. We'll start off with our first segment. What have you seen lately? How about you go first this time, Alex?
Sure thing. Must admit, it's been a little bit quieter in my neck of the woods. We did have a belted kingfisher hanging around some of the trees near the lake before it got all cold. And now we've got some wild turkeys in the area, kind of taking over the goose territory by the lake. And I do enjoy seeing the wild turkeys because they're just kind of weird looking and fun. And lastly, it's not the most exciting, but I finally got a good view of a northern flicker. I feel like every time I've tried to get a close one in the past, it's always disappeared out of shot. So it felt good to see one up close, finally. Um, and I think they're a lot prettier than people might give them credit for. I think the white patch that I finally saw behind the back, it's the pretty birds.
Yeah, I like northern flickers. I think I'd consider them probably one of my favorite woodpeckers. I actually saw a couple yesterday, and they were doing. I looked it up because I didn't know what it was, but they were doing what's called a Wicca dance. I got a pretty good recording of it. Threw it up on YouTube. It's about 10 seconds long, so feel free to take a look at that, everybody. Pretty interesting.
Nice. What about you? What have you seen this past couple of weeks?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, I went for a little morning walk along a bike path that's close by to me. Um, this path in particular goes along a decent sized lake, so I kind of went into the walk thinking I'd see the regulars, ring-billed gulls, bald eagles, great blue herons, probably some double-crested cormorants, and yeah, I saw those for sure. Lots of them, decent amount of bald eagles actually, which I was pretty excited about. They're always fun to see. Unexpectedly, though, I was able to add 2 new birds to my life list.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of go through those right here because it was just really exciting to see some new stuff. So the first one was a black-throated blue warbler, which I didn't even know were a thing, but boy, they're pretty. So I was walking along. There's a decent group of black-capped chickadees flitting around in the underbush. Always like to see them. I know they're kind of like regular birds, not super exciting always, but they're kind of fun to watch. They're very active, have a lot of personality. So I was kind of taking a look at them as we're walking along, and all of a sudden something different kind of landed right on a branch right by me, posed for me. Got some really good pictures of it. I was able to look up later, looking at my pictures to kind of determine what it was. And yeah, black-throated blue warbler. Kind of one of my favorite warblers now.
Yeah, he's a pretty little guy. I feel like with a lot of warblers, it's really hard to tell what they are, even if you like had them in your hands. So at least you have the pictures.
Yeah,
But
well, now that I know what this guy looks like, I mean, he doesn't look like anything else, so it's
yeah,
a
he
fun
stands
one.
out.
Yeah. And then the last one was a Philadelphia vireo. I feel like around here we tend to mostly get the red-eyed vireos. So I didn't know this was a thing either. I knew there's quite a bit of vireo species out there, but hadn't ever really looked into it that much. Kind of similar to the black-throated blue warbler. Saw them flitting around in the other bush with some chickadees. I was able to get a good enough picture of them. Probably not post-worthy, but good enough for a ID.
Nice. How could you tell it was a Vireo or a Philadelphia? What made him stand out?
Well, I suspected he was a vireo. Just kind of from he had like the eye ring, the white eye ring around him, which I feel like vireos tend to have. But besides that, you just kind of had it's just grayish, nondescript, kind of yellow tinge to it. So it was a little tougher of an ID, but I'm pretty confident that's what it was.
Yeah, not quite as distinct as the warbler there.
Yes, definitely not. So yeah, overall, I'd consider that a pretty successful walk. It's always nice to add new species to the list.
I bet.
And then I guess I'll add on here. Last night was taking Eugene the dog for a walk and through the woods by my place, and heard a couple owls hooting at each other. And we get a lot of barred owls around here, so I'm pretty familiar with what they sound like. I could tell this was different, so got out the old Merlin app again, uh, and had it double checked for me, and it said great horned owl, which I'm pretty sure I saw some as a kid, back before I tracked any of this stuff, but I never officially seen any, so I was pretty excited at the chance.
Yeah, that's good. I was gonna say you'll get some of the people in the birding community get very sensitive. I know about the Merlin app. I do understand what they're saying, but I think it's a good backup. It's a good second confirmation.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I'm sure we could get into that in another episode. It'd make for a good topic. So me and Eugene, we went off trailing. He didn't know what was going on, but he was enjoying it. He's a big get off the trail kind of dog. So he was having a good time. I was having a good time. We have to stand and wait for him to hoot again. Finally was able to get up close. Could hear them pretty. Like I could tell they were in one of these two trees, and before I could get a good look at one flew out of the tree. So I was able to see him fly away. It's so exciting to see something like that. They're so big. It's so impressive looking. Just wish I could have seen him when he was sitting there. You can see the big horns on him.
Yeah, still, I have to say I'm envious how many owls you get to see when you walk in Eugene. We have a lot of different birds here, and we do have some birds of prey, but owls are not one I've got to see a lot
Yeah,
of
I don't know what the
at
difference
all.
would be between here and where you are, but I mean, there's just so many, especially the barred owls. Every couple of weeks, I wake up and I just hear them outside just hooting at each other, making a ruckus. There's a pretty big group that kind of sticks around the area. So yeah, they're always exciting to see.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
So with that, we'll get into the topic of the episode. So we're gonna do something a little different this episode. We're not really gonna have a true topic, but you went for a little trip since our last recording, so I thought it'd kind of be nice for you to recap that. You went to the East Coast. We live in Minnesota, so not many ocean coasts in Minnesota. Uh, I thought it would kind of be fun to hear what you saw, something a little different for us. Hopefully, it was something a little different for the guys at home, listeners at home.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to get an extended weekend trip with some friends to Cape Cod. First time I ventured east of Michigan, so I was pretty excited, to get out the regular mundane part of life and work, but also I knew it'd be a great opportunity to see some new birds. Do you think you can guess the most common type of bird that I saw in Cape
So
Cod?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say you probably saw a lot of gulls.
Wow, how did you
I don't
know
know,
that?
man of
Yeah,
many
it was
talents.
gulls. Yeah, there was so many gulls. We managed to identify, I think, four species in the end. It's hard when the juvies get all mixed up. It's hard to tell, but we saw plenty of herring gulls and ring-billed gulls, which are both in Minnesota too, so nothing special there. But we also ID'd the great black-backed gull, which is the largest gull in the world, so not that hard to spot. But we also did see some laughing gulls. They're not as common, and there's only a few of them, but we got a good idea on those guys. Also, plenty of shorebirds. I'd say the highlight there was some sanderlings and semi-palmated plovers. We saw about 50 or so of the semi-palmated plovers flying into the rocks where all the crabs were. So it was really fun to sort of stand there and just watch them really up close, moving between the rocks and just picking and things. Have you seen any of those guys?
Yeah, I think I've seen semi-palmated. I'm for sure I've seen sanderlings, but they're always fun to see. They're always active. I just like how they run on their little skinny legs. So always fun to see.
Yeah, watching them run, it was pretty fun. That was a nice highlight. But as you know, waterfowl are my bird group of choice. So my goal was to see at least one new duck before I came home. It wasn't looking too promising. We spent most of the time on the Cape side, so it was mainly gulls. But we finally got to an oceanside beach, and there's about 50 birds sitting on the water, and it was cloudy, it was rainy, high waves, so we couldn't really see them too well at all. Because every time you get a good look through the binoculars, the wave would come in and they'd be out of shot. We did figure that they were either the common eider or the white-winged scoter, but we couldn't say with any confidence. But thankfully, there was a fellow birder there who was watching us struggle to see them and offered the use of their scope. And then we finally able to get a good look, and turned out it was both the ducks riding the waves. And then on our last day at Provincetown, we got to see the two ducks again. A little bit clearer this time. Weather was a lot nicer, and it was at the docks, so they were just kind of mingling around, and that was nice. It was cool to get two new duck species, and I think the common eiders, they're kind of pretty. They're chunky guys, but they're pretty. Have you seen either of
No,
those, Aaron?
I've not seen either of those. I don't really think I've seen too many sea ducks. Most of my ducks are, in the area: mallards, hooded mergansers, wood ducks. I really need to step up my duck game. I think you're leaving me behind.
Yeah, they are the highlight. I do like them. I want to see a ruddy duck. I think that might be my next
Nice,
target.
nice. That'd be a good one. So with that, we'll move on to our bird of the episode, and we're gonna stick with our theme of state birds. After we're out of states, who knows what we'll do? We'll figure that out. We got a little while. And so today's bird of the episode represents 6 states. We got Kansas, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oregon, and Wyoming. And that bird is the western meadowlark. So, as the name implies, and as the states I just listed off imply, they are mostly found in the western half of the U.S., and they are mostly associated with grasslands. I feel like all those states, most of the states you would associate with grasslands. So, makes a lot of sense. But on the other hand, conversely, the name implies that they're related to larks. This is actually not true. They're most closely related to different species of blackbirds, which I was surprised to read that when I was looking these up. So they're best known, I'd say, for their coloration. They've got a bright yellow underside with a striking black V on the chest. And when they sing, they kind of lift their head up and kind of push out their chest, so you can really recognize it. And on that note, their song is probably one of their more recognizable features. So I've seen one of these one time back in 2017 on a trip out to Utah and Arizona. I was up by Salt Lake City, saw it up there. It was just sitting on a fence post out in the meadow, just singing. It was kind of what you'd picture when you think of one of these guys. Have you ever had the fortune of seeing one of these, Alex?
I haven't, though I haven't been out in the West very often, so that's probably why not. It is a pretty bird. I'd say there are songbirds with similar markings, but obviously not that black V part. Um, I do understand there's an eastern meadowlark, so do you know
Yeah,
what the
that's a
difference
great
is between the
question.
two?
I looked into it earlier when I was doing the research for this, and there's very few differences between them. They look really similar. They behave pretty similar, but scientists were noticing that in the crossover area, kind of in the middle of the country, they weren't hybridizing in the wild, which typically see with really closely related species of birds. So they brought some into captivity. They tried to breed them. They were able to get offspring, but they were infertile offspring, which you see a lot of time with hybrids, like your ligers or your mules, that kind of thing. So because of that, they were able to conclude that they're separate species.
Thanks, scientists, for that. So I guess it all depends on where you are in the country then.
Yeah, so if you're out west, consider it the western one. If you're on the east, consider it the eastern one. If you're in the middle, you're kind of out of luck. You just kind of assume it's one or the other, I guess.
Yeah, say it's both. Count 'em both.
Yeah, maybe looking at them right side by side, you could probably tell them apart, but it'd be a tough one to do in the field. And that's going to do it for us today. Thank you, Alex, for joining me. Thanks to all the listeners at home for their support. As always, feel free to provide feedback by emailing us at featherytreasury@gmail.com. We'd love to hear suggestions for topics, ways we can improve. We're always looking to improve. And if you want more information about Feathery Treasury as a whole, feel free to visit featherytreasury.com. That's mostly just me looking at birds, taking pictures of birds, doing this show. But we'd love the support there. And that's going to do it for us. Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah, goodbye all.